So maybe she
baby.
learned something, but a little bit too late. He was mad at Moog. He was mad at Hillary. He was mad at Podesta, all these people around her, because they did not see that she had to hammer away at the economy.
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is a special edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today so we can bring in guests who are continuing to create vocabulary and melodic improvisation. They've been doing it for the last 5 decades. My guest continues to be a mentor, a leader, both in the classroom, on the bandstand. Dear friend of the program, David Garibaldi, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Brother Jake, how are you, man?
Yeah, great to hear you, man. Why is it so windy?
Is it windy right now?
I don't know. I listen, we're not going to waste any time. we got a game on this program called Name That Voice. I'm going to play this for you, and I want you to come back and we'll riff on it, okay?
All right. Hey, if it's too windy, I'll move to a different location. I'm outside.
No, when you talk, it's good. It just, I know you're on the East Coast. Hold on one second.
All right.
So we were in school together, and that was a period where we were like, still are, and at that time, really good friends, hung out a lot, played together. In fact, there's this picture, if I can find it.
Please.
Remember Rich versus Roach, that famous
Oh,
album?
yeah.
Dave and I took a picture of that 2 drum sets together. If I can find it, I'll send that to you.
No, you need to find that, man. I mean, because he
But
called...
we were, we just met in college and played, and at that time, I was like, the jazz guy and, listening to Tony Williams and, going for that kind of stuff, and Dave was checking out Bernard Purdy and, really starting to hone his craft as a great funk drummer, So that was like, and then he went into the Air Force after that, but that was just out of college. That's how we knew each other.
Were you able to hear that?
I was.
Rick
Quintanilla.
Rick Quintanilla. And
Yeah.
but I think this is an area that's been unexplored by us, is this community college where you guys met. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about what kind of gigs you were doing at that time, especially, and here's the point, David, it's like George Porter, I was transcribing my interview with him, and he was talking about a lot of the cats that never made it out of the little clubs on the Strip in New Orleans, but they ultimately let guys like him sit in on the bandstand. That was a lesson for Porter. And I'm wondering at that time in community college, if you had an opportunity to sit in on the bandstand with some cats.
Well, let's see. I was, I got out of high school. I was 17 years old. I had been, this is right before college, and I had been playing on Tuesday nights with the Sid Reese Big Band. So all older guys. I mean, I don't know why they liked the way I played, because I didn't have anything together yet. But it was a great learning experience. I couldn't even play an 8-bar solo. I mean, I can hardly do it now. I certainly couldn't do it then. And they were just really great. Taught me a lot of stuff, life, music, got me other gigs. One of my first other gigs, the first paid gig was with that big band, the Sid Reese Big Band. And in Livermore, California, on the back of a truck, flatbed truck, out in front of his music store. And then they got me a gig, I think it was a New Year's Eve gig. And it was with a stripper. And I'd never seen anything like that before. I was 17, and maybe it just turned 18. But I had only one stick and one brush. I somehow forgot to get all my gear together. So they were really upset about that, especially the stripper.
Well, I want to go back for a second. Sid Reese, big band. Okay, again, George Porter.
Yeah.
George Porter said that he was in a big band, but he considered that they played a lot of swing and bebop, and it was really only a 5-piece. Did you? I mean, you were on the back of a flatbed truck in a big band, or did I miss something there?
That's right. That's what we did. That was our first gig. That was when I discovered that I could actually make money doing this.
Right. That's
that was a big moment. And then also, at that time, then I went into, enrolled in community college. That was Chabot Junior College in Hayward, California. Actually, it wasn't even in Hayward at that time. It was in San Leandro. They had just opened, and it was not far from where the Raiders started at Frank Ewell Field in East Oakland. That's not far from where the Coliseum is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I met Rick and Mr. Graves, Mr. Gene Graves, who was our teacher, and was just a great, great man. He just every day was a lesson in life and everything else. He was a drummer himself. Just a really cool guy.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, though. In Hayward, there was a really intense black chitlin circuit going on. James Brown and the Flames, a myriad of bands, and I don't know how well you could have actually heard Quintanal's audio, but he talked about the fact that he was the jazz. You guys were both into jazz, but then you started to kind of go off more in the Bernard Purdie R&B direction. Did you wind up playing any gigs? Did you back up soul singers or anybody on that chitlin circuit?
No.
Never.
Because I was getting into James Brown. My friends and I took me to see James Brown. That was the first time that I saw him, and it was right around that period, and that really changed everything. That kind of moved me in the direction of wanting to play, rock and roll and funk and all that, but still loved jazz. I still dug it, still was playing it. Rick was a way more accomplished drummer at the time than I was. He had really nice chops. He could play with a big band. I mean, he could do all kinds of stuff already, and we were this, real young guys. And then after that, by the time I was 19, I was already in the military. I was gone, So, there were clubs. There was a club called Cicero's that was in downtown Hayward, and this guy Jimmy Cicero, he had a really cool trio in there, organ, with drums and that kind of stuff, and that was a kind of a famous spot for young people. There was kind of these young teenager kind of nightclubs, and then there was another one that I used to play at called the Penthouse. And there was a band in there that was a regular band. They were called Tommy and the Hustlers. And they had, so it was Tommy Narduccio was his name, I think. Tommy and the Hustlers. And they kind of had the regular gig there. And they were kind of, the ones that everybody looked at, kind of were listening to. They were the big men on campus and all that, the cool guys. And then I would play in there. They had an off night kind of a thing that I would go play, and there was a keyboard player, an older guy named Don Haas.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, I know that cat.
And but right after that, I went into the military, so I was gone, when things were kind of developing there.
Yeah, but I guess also I'd love if you could move into a nice conference room. Maybe it'd be great to hear you. We want to get every single word you're saying.
I'm sorry, it's not good.
Well, it's just what it is. I need we need full. It's fine. It's fine. Here's the thing.
I'll walk back towards my hotel right now. There is a little bit of noise out here.
I feel like you're by the I-95 or something. You're by the freeway. I mean, there's just a lot of traffic.
I'm in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Sea Caucus, man.
Yeah.
They used to broadcast the satellite, the Mets games out of there back when I was growing up in Long Island. So, okay, first of all, and why was the stripper upset with just a stick and a brush? I don't really know why. I mean, you could still play Duke Ellington tunes.
No, but I couldn't hit her moves. With a stick and a brush, it was like boom, swish.
So was this a burlesque club, or was this, I mean, can we get an idea? Was this just an outdoor event?
It was a Friday, not Friday. It was a place called Frenchie's where Tower Power played.
Yeah, that's what Rocco told me about Frenchie's, man.
Yeah, Frenchie's was a kind of a spot, in Hayward, and used to be pretty. They used to have these supper clubs all over the Bay Area. There was Bimbo's in San Francisco, Frenchie's in Hayward, and these were places where, people went dressed up and went out and heard music. So this was a New Year's gig.
The overarching, what I'm trying to get at is that I had an opportunity to interview Mtume about 2 weeks ago, and he was just talking about, I'm very interested in continuing vocabulary in all music, how that happens, how you guys were able to stretch that, and ultimately what he said today in academia is that, it's great that somebody can play a John Coltrane solo or transcribe an Elvin Jones solo, but it doesn't really tell him anything about who they are. So in many ways, it's like you're going back, and he called it tracing paper music. You're just going over what's already been done. And I look at your lessons. I mean, you were not, you provide lessons today. You do private lessons, but did you have private lessons when you were coming up? I mean, the lessons were on the bandstand. Is that right?
Well, yes. I had teachers. I mean, I learned in elementary school and high school and college and all that. Private teachers were not really wasn't what people did. That's not how you learned at that time, The only way, really, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I came up sort of on the cusp of the rock and roll era, and so learning was very different than it has become. It was more like you had to get the records. You had to listen to what guys did. You had to try to figure out what they were doing from the records. And then maybe if you were lucky, you got to see them if they came through your town. So it was very difficult to build a playing personality, but you could do it. And the end result was very individual sounding players, because there wasn't all this stuff to copy. You kind of had to figure it out for yourself.
When you
following me?
Oh, I love it. No, this is so important. So what do you tell the cats? All I'm saying is that the other part that George Porter was talking about is that cats that do have bands today, put aside Tower of Power and Journey and Steve Miller, who are, you're in Sea Caucus, and you're the million gig tour, as you refer to it. You guys are working off a street credibility. But for cats that are trying to put bands together now, they don't necessarily let people sit in with them because they're just trying to make their own way. Where in the past, the older cats were more secure to say, yeah, man, come on, sit in. If you can't play, we're just going to walk off the stage. But that, to me, is more emboldening. That is more of that's a school. A school is not going in and just copying what, like you said, we're inundated with so much information. So I guess when you're talking to younger students, do you tell them to drop off the grid and seek through just practical application? How do you get them to seek so that they can develop their own sound?
Well, now I'm in the elevator.
Yeah, now it's even. I mean, you have it's like some sort of.
It's coming. Yeah, don't worry. I'm stepping out of the elevator. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm out of the elevator. Well, it was a different way that people learned and you developed, during that era, because there was a lot of it was standard, jazz tunes that everybody had to know, and so you learn to play those things, and then you go out and play with people. Everybody played the same kind of tunes. And, it's not like that now.
And so my point is that, but being that you're still, I mean, you do private lessons for cats. So
yeah, but just to address that.
Yeah.
What I tell, people is, you want to study with me, I do things in a very personalized sort of a way. I mean, that's how I learned. I developed kind of my own way to play based on all the things that I was hearing. And so I put together, my vocabulary doing that, copying guys, that kind of stuff. I never did much transcribing, not till later. Transcribing is a good way to understand what people are playing, but still ultimately you have to take those things that you're learning and you have to do your thing with it, because this is art, no more, no less. It's an expression of kind of what you see in the music that you want to play. And that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of playing, a lot of discovery sessions. And so that's what I encourage my students to do. I'm a big believer in fundamentals, developing technique, that kind of stuff, having good fundamental skills. You can read and all that stuff. And then create. What do you want to create for yourself? And that's always the first question I ask someone who studies with me is, what do you want? What do you want to go with this? Why are you coming to see me? What do you want to create? And oftentimes, people have not thought about it like that. There's a really good book by a guy named Steve Chandler. It's called Fearless. And he's like a life coach and, does all these, helps people and, motivational speaker and all this stuff. And that's kind of his question that he always asks when people come to see him is, what do you want to create? And, kind of when I read that, it really struck me, because that's exactly the thing that I ask people that study with me. I've been doing it for years now, and it really resonated with me, because it's true. It's not about what I want to do when they come to see me. It's what they want. That's why they're there. So I try to help people navigate their way through the creative process and become what they want.
Well, I guess, but I mean, we're talking to a pretty enlightened character in David Garibaldi. I mean, if cats are coming to see you, do you gauge whether they're able to actually answer that question immediately? I mean, when the Jake Feinberg show started, it was based on, I was rooted in public policy, but then I kind of, there was no soul. So then I went off and just started to woodshed and became fearless and just got on the, and now this is where it's at. So it's like, do you ask people do you gauge whether they're even able to answer that question? I mean, that's a heavy thing to ask someone.
But that's ultimately what leads you to yourself is, what do you want to create? So, and then if that appeals to them, then the journey begins,
Could you give an example? Could you give an example of your teaching, like how you, like specifically with one student, no names mentioned, but just like how you, because, I mean, people were coming to you with, I want to be, I mean, who knows in this century what they're trying to do differently, but somebody comes to you with an outside the box idea. Can you give a specificity on that?
Well, you always want to encourage people to be themselves, and that's really why they're coming to see you. They're trying to figure out what it is that they want. And when you mention to them, you posit that question, what do you want to create? That kind of opens up something in their thinking that wasn't there before. So all you got to do is get them to the place or show them what they can do so that they can have that, ignition moment, when everything becomes, when they get that moment when they say, wow, this is cool, this is what I want to do, you get them excited, man. I'll have them play, for instance. I'll have somebody play. I say, well, we'll talk. We'll always talk first. And I say, well, let's see what you're doing. Let's hear what you're doing. So, of course, everybody's really nervous because they're playing in front of me and all this. So I just, kind of disarm them. Just tell me, just play. Just play how you feel, whatever it is. Play through a couple styles, some beats, whatever you want. And then they play, and then we get into what they're doing. And that always leads to many other things,
Mm-hmm.
I teach at regularly now at Dub's Drum Basement in Dublin, California, a couple times a month, or once a month at least, when I'm going to be there in another week or so. And I got a regular bunch of guys coming in there now. And they're all really cool. Everybody's very different. Everybody has very different, goals. All of them want to be better. And all of them have things that they're trying to do with their playing. All of them have gigs that they're doing. So they're working on their craft. Some of them have day gigs and play, for just to play. They love it. So you just kind of steer people in the direction that they want to go. Help them keep the bus on the road, It's not the direction I want to take them. It's the direction they want to go. And then my gig is to help them see it bigger for themselves, and then maybe encourage them in ways that they never thought, and help them get to the place where they want, And then maybe if they get good enough, they're comfortable enough, with stuff, and they want to proceed further, I'll hand them off to somebody, or I'll suggest that they go study with, style of some kind, something.
I totally dig. Do cats come to you and say, I want to be in a team concept. I want to do something along the lines of Tower of Power, not, in the idea of saying, I want to be part of a group of people with big ears.
Oh, yeah, often. Yeah, sure. I mean, everybody wants that, whether they know it or not.
So I guess what I'm saying is it's not like you're going to be like, oh yeah, bring the whole band in so I can work with you guys. So I mean, what advice do you give?
Well, I've done that. I mean, I've done that. I've done rhythm section workshops and, that kind of stuff. Sure. Tower has done, Tower has done, those things. Band clinics, full band clinics. Those are pretty cool.
Is there a spot that the cats that you can talk about, some of the students that is something 21st century equivalent to the on Broadway, where Reality Sandwich and all that stuff, because that to me is like the ultimate. I mean, you take all that sort of expression, natural expression, vision, and then you're able to sort of, just sort of hash it out and maybe get a few bucks for it. But are there places where, meeting grounds that you hear from the younger peeps, that cats that come in to see you, are there places around that they can do that?
I mean, once in a while I'll hear of a place where there's a jam, or, somebody has got something organized, something organized where they, have a place once a week where they can go do something, with other people and kind of mess around and play. But it's not like it was when I was, when I was coming up. I mean, there wasn't, the Monday night jam session where all the bad cats would go, and, if you had the balls, you went in there and you played with some bad cats, and they let you play. I don't know of any place like that here or in the Bay Area, I'm sure they exist other places. I just haven't heard of one in the Bay Area.
Going back to Sid Reese, I was talking to, some just bluegrass cats about Bill Monroe, Vassar Clemens. You listen to those guys talk, and they said the most profound things in like 3 or 4 word paraphrases. They weren't even sentences, but what they would say would be absolutely profound. Going back to Sid Reese, was he a guy that was, can you talk about his leadership style and ultimately what you learned from that cat? I mean, and also, how big was the band on the back of the flatbed?
Well, it was a big band. We were playing Glenn Miller music. There was probably 15 guys. It was a big old truck, and they put chairs up there, and. But Sid was kind of a mentor, sort of a person. He took an interest in, people that came in. He was a saxophone player. He took an interest in people that would come in for, the lessons and that kind of stuff. He had a piano teacher there. Larry Riera was his name. And Larry was a real cool guy, great player, cool teacher. And so, when I took some piano lessons there, and, Sid took an interest in me. He liked that I was interested. And, just was a very mentoring sort of a guy,
We're talking to a legendary drummer and teacher, and we're gonna hit this again. This Name That Voice, bring you back to yesteryear. I want you to take a listen to this in a much more climate-friendly environment, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what studying with him. He had moved down there to for a bit, and I remember he had a place out in Canoga Park. I was probably like 14 or something. It was hilarious because my first lesson with him, I didn't even have a drum set. I just found his number through the Musicians Union.
Absolutely, that's the right way to go.
And,
yeah.
and I was like, I love your drumming. I want to learn how to play drum kit. And at that point, I'd only been working on my hands, just learning rudiments and stuff. And he was like probably the biggest influence on me, just because he taught me how to play a backbeat and how to actually get the sound out of the drums, and how to, his whole concept was taking the old, soul R&B drummers and kind of modernizing it in a way. And so he taught me all the, inside groove stuff, like the sound levels of accented and unaccented notes, and taking rudiments and spreading them out on the kit and making grooves out of them. And I mean, it just was really, really eye-opening. I had no idea. I would have just been a basher rock drummer if I hadn't encountered him. He really...
All right, buddy, what do you got for us?
Well, let's see. His grandfather used to bring him to... They lived in San Pedro. And his grandfather would bring him to my house. And he was like a real geeky sort of teenage kid.
Yeah, like me.
And it's Matt Chamberlain, in case anybody doesn't know who that is.
And just for the record, for everybody listening all over the world, even when we are not directly communicating with David Garibaldi, we're always asking people about David Garibaldi. So continue, please.
Jeez. So, he didn't study with me very long. I mean, he was pretty talented. And, he picked up things really fast. He was very kind of like introverted, sort of geeky sort of guy. His grandfather was very, very kind. Would sit in the living room while we went in my practice studio, and it was cool. And then, of course, like he went on to do, a lot of cool stuff. He's a very creative guy. One of the more creative ones, that I've ever met. He just wanted to be himself. He was comfortable with being himself. He was cool with that, which is, the teacher's dream, really, to have somebody that wants to be themselves, doesn't want to be you. They want to be themselves.
Can you, what he was riffing on there was this styles, what we've been talking about in the first 20 minutes of the interview, which was more about, what do you want to do? What's your vision? And he said something to the effect about you taking the old style R&B drummers, and I forget exactly what he said, but it's the idea of the Garibaldi, not the methodology, but can you talk about meshing those styles and when that kind of first came into your consciousness that it was like, wow, this is, I'm not hearing, this is stuff that I want people to hear this stuff because no one's playing this kind of stuff, this merging that he was talking about. Because what he basically...
I never thought about it like that, man. To me, it was all just a real organic, natural sort of deal, to me, all music fits together, that even though there's stylistic considerations and all of that stuff, I mean, today's player, there are so many influences, there's so many things that go into, like a drum groove or, a piece of music that you wouldn't even think, well, how does that influence that? You're going, but I just think all music fits together. And when you start looking at it and then start studying it, the connection of, the influence of, African music in all the music that we play today, it's kind of a bottom line sort of deal, really. And, you start studying all those kinds of music, and then you just get ideas. I don't know where the ideas come from. I mean, God, I guess. I mean, I get ideas. I have, what if I move this over here? What if I try this with this? What if I do this with this? It's always that. It's always, moving in some kind of direction that, mixes things together. It's always been like that for me. I don't know. I have any idea where it came from, but for me, music was always a mixture of stuff. I think it's probably because I like so much different kinds of music, and I listened to so much different kinds of music as I was growing up, that, that blender, what comes out, is what I am,
It's just one big smoothie of all sorts of, I dig.
Yeah, that's right.
I dig the concoctions, or all the different, music as a meal, as the great Ndugu Chancellor said. You can't just have chicken. It's got to be a whole. You got to have all the accompanying parts of it. But I think that when he's talking about, if I didn't meet Garibaldi, I just would have been a basher. See, like that's the part that I hear a lot today, and it was validated yesterday by the engineer Val Garay. He said that, he was just talking about modern singers and modern music today. You don't hear any dynamics at all, like low and high. And I'm curious about what do you think he means by I would have just been a basher if I didn't meet Garibaldi? And number two, when was the best opportunity in your career to learn about the dynamics within tunes? Because it seems like loud at some point in the 70s, the bass drum became very prevalent, and all of a sudden people thought louder wins, and you came in before that time. So what did he mean by that? I just would have been a basher, and how did you break that sort of,
Well, I mean, I didn't break it. He broke it. I mean, he listened. I mean, he had real sensitive musical ears. He wanted to play musically, and all I did was just tell him that there's a lot of stuff out there that can make your playing better. There's a lot of, music that you can listen to that'll open your ears. We talked about, it's just fundamentals, man. I mean, one of the first things I learned from my elementary school music teacher was music is loud and soft and in between. And, that's why there's, all those, Italian musical terms, forte, pianissimo, all of that, mezzo forte. they all mean something. They mean something dynamically, you know. So I think when you study music in a organized way and study, you know, get fundamentals together, you learn about that. You learn about dynamics. You learn about, you know, the ebb and flow of music. It's not, you know, just 10 all the time, you know.
Where did you get that on the bandstand in terms of, I mean, was it Tower of Power?
That's the way I came up. I mean, that's the way I learned. That's the way I learned to play. That's the way I learned to do music. You know, so it started way back when I was a little boy learning music. Those are the things that, you know, I learned then. And then, of course, joining Tower was like, you know, a big band, but playing 16th notes. So all I did was play Tower just like I was playing like with Count Basie. And I, you know, but it was Count Basie and James Brown and Motown and, you know, all this other stuff. And so sometimes when I hit a cymbal, I think of it like I'm in an orchestra. I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, hit the cymbal so that it breaks. You know, there's a certain aggression that kind of some points in the music, there's kind of a, you know, you need some kind of aggression, right? But then there's other points in the music where you just need to touch the instrument. You don't need to, you know, hit it very hard to convey what that moment means, what that emotion is, you know? And you learn those things. I mean, it's just part of learning what music is. And then in playing it, you know, music, a performance is like your life, you know, it's just such ebbs and flows.
Stephen Ferroni said that, he said if you listen to Headhunters, talking about Harvey Mason, has an R&B feel. Harvey plays very lightly. He's a very light playing drummer, but when he records, it doesn't sound that way. It sounds like there's an enormous backbeat. I mean, these are things that, I guess, sort of, as a non-musician, these are fascinating sort of things. You say that you just learn them over time, but I just, in my mind, it's like, well, you need to have taste, and you need to have sensitivity, and you need, most importantly, you need to...
Yeah, but all those things, you're not born with those things. Those are learned skills. Those are things that you learn, you know, in the what's the word, the crucible of, you know, making music, making you. Those are things that you learn. Those are acquired things.
Right.
You're not born with, you know, all of a sudden, you know, born with sensibility and taste and all this other stuff. That's stuff that you get. And then, you know, you have strengths and weaknesses. And some people have strengths where they have, you know, incredible sensitivity to certain kinds of music, certain kinds of, you know, ways they phrase solos. So, you know, that's all personal stuff.
Can you talk about, you know, as objectively as possible, how, you know, you guys in Tower of Power, who does the set lists? You guys have been playing huge amounts of shows, but what I'm getting at is the idea is, you know, how do you never play the same song once? How do you keep things interesting so that you're not, the cats are not playing the same solos every night, and that there is spontaneity still in the live music context? I mean, I think that's very important. I've been talking to Chamberlain, like they just put out an album and it was completely improvisational. And the guy who was, you know, doing a review for it, a jazz critic, you know, was just flummoxed by it. He said, "You got to be kidding me. You must have practiced. There must be a little bit of practice." And it was like, no, this is completely improvised. And it's kind of like once you figure out how to play, like you said, you build the rudiments, you build the foundations, and then you learn to take risks. And after a while, it just becomes normal. But when you have an audience there that is expecting to see a certain show with the greatest hits. It could be formulaic. How do you keep it spontaneity? How do you keep that spontaneity, especially the rhythm section?
Well, it's fun. I don't know. It's fun. It's our own thing. I mean, we're working for ourselves. We play our own music. All the music that I play, I created the parts for. So if there's a problem, then the problem is with me, not with what I created. It's, my way of approaching things. So we have right now we have 3 sets of stuff that we do with a couple repeats in there, because we, certain songs we just do all the time. We have about three different sets now, and we mix and match tunes, and it's good stuff, man. I mean, you got to, yes, it's formulaic in a way, but if you're soloing, that's something else. The solo content is on you, and how to make it interesting, how you use your vocabulary to, go through that solo each night. And our guys are really good at it. You don't hear a lot of repeats. Guys have licks and things that they do, but these guys can blow.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's really fun listening to them. And then, our music is very organized. So we have, an organized approach to what we do. And there's, people have been coming to see us, and some people have come to see us, I don't know, hundreds of times, and have heard some of the songs played by different configurations of the band, different singers and all that stuff. They never get tired of it seems like, And it's just such a nice thing to see people enjoying it at that level. They're enjoying it like we are, and it's cool. And
you're getting and it's a gig. It's you're making your livelihood off of it, which is fantastic. I mean, do you have a desire, or are there opportunities for you to be? Are you going to do any side projects, any side leadership? I just would love to know about stuff that you're still that you that are not necessarily you're not necessarily comfortable with, but you're still willing to push yourself outside. I'm not talking about Tower, but I'm just talking about in general as an elder really now in melodic improvisation in the musical lexicon. What are some of the things you're still challenging yourself with? And are there going to be some Garibaldi side projects that we can look forward to in the near future?
Well, there might be. I mean,
good answer, man.
Well, I mean, it's the truth,
Yeah.
There might be. I mean, I love doing this. I mean, there's just so many different things to get into. I really dig my band. I mean, I honestly do. I mean, I stay with it because I like how we do things. I like that nobody looks over your shoulder. You get to be yourself. And, that's really all you can ask for. And so it's kind of like a dream sort of a gig, really. I enjoy all the people in it. We have a great time together. We're a big family. We're beyond that. We're an organism now. And, it's a great thing, and side projects, I was doing a whole bunch of side projects a few years ago and then stopped really because I was never home. And so I just cut back on all the extra stuff and just devoted my time to Tower. And then, I started doing, clinics again. I do all the educational stuff. I write books, which I really enjoy doing. I always wanted to be a teacher. I always liked teachers. Really good teachers always interested me. I had some really great ones. And
my favorite ones were the ones that were, like these Yoda kind of people, that you could always go to, and they would have an answer for something. And that's kind of the teacher that I want to be. Is I like this player teacher thing. I like that, player coach sort of a vibe.
Yeah, like maybe not the most apropos, but like Pete Rose, manager, teacher player.
Yeah, player coach.
Player coach.
Deal, yeah.
Can you point to a Yoda-esque character leader that you really felt? Because that stuff is you're talking more about you want to be that, and the question is, do you have the constitution to do that inside of you? And I'm just curious about, because those cats, it's effortless because it's who they are. It's their true nature. Just like Vassar Clemens, you hear him talk about people playing bluegrass fiddle, and in 4 words, he has you cracking up, and he's spot on about it. And I'm just curious about if you could point to a Yoda-esque teacher you had that, and maybe something profound that they said or helped you with.
Well, there were 3 really, I guess, I had 4 really kind of really important teachers. Now, I always have a teacher. I have a teacher today. And throughout my music life, I've always had teachers. I think that having a teacher is one of the most valuable things that you can have as a performer, as someone in the arts, is someone who does what you do that has perspective. Because that's what you want. You want perspective. Because if you're always inside yourself, you lose it sometimes. So you always like to have other eyes on what you're doing and what you're thinking. So in high school, it was Mr. James Campana and Anthony Caviglia. They were my teachers in high school. Great men who got me really thinking about playing music, really getting serious about it. Then when I got out of the service, and there was, actually before I went into service, there was Mr. Graves, Gene Graves, who was my college music teacher, and then I studied with him again after I got out of the military because I went back to school for a short time, and he was still there teaching, and he was even greater then. I think it's because I was more open even to all the things that he was teaching. And then studying with Chuck Brown in Oakland at Sherman and Clay upstairs every week. That was probably one of the greatest musical experiences ever.
Why?
And then, because he taught me about discipline, and I bought into it. I'd never really done that before, but wasn't mature enough to really, buy into what the teacher was trying to show me, and though I did, and so it kind of took my playing to, some levels that I never even imagined that I would get to. And then when I lived in L.A., there were a few guys there that were really, really excellent teachers, and I had gone to Richard Wilson, and I really dug him. He just was such a cool guy, but he smoked too much weed, and it was difficult to, have a lesson that wasn't rambling on different places. And so we remained really good friends until he passed, and he was just a really, really excellent teacher. And then I studied with Murray Spivak, and Murray was very elderly at the time, but just like Yoda, man. He was he could look at you and tell you what kind of person you were. He could listen to you talk and tell you what you're thinking. I mean, he was just
He could look
amazing.
into your soul. He could. I just want to go
He
back.
was amazing,
Chuck
man. He would
Brown.
like,
Yeah.
well, this whole, but Murray would like,
Yeah, go ahead.
His lessons were very simple, very old school. He came from the vaudeville tradition and had come to Hollywood to do sound effects for movies from vaudeville. So I think his first gig was on the original King Kong movie. And so that's kind of, he has had a very rich history in Hollywood in the movie thing, you know, and it became a sound recorder and got an Oscar and all this other stuff. I mean, he was a pretty bad dude. But always kept his drum teaching practice. So his exercises were all very, very simple. It was reading, it was rudiments, you know, hand technique, all this really just orchestral sort of stuff. And it was just beautiful. And so the lessons were either on a practice pad or a snare drum. And when I'd be sometimes on the playing on the practice pad, the exercise, he'd watch my hands and then he'd kind of look away and he'd say, loosen your right hand. It's not resonating. Okay? And so I would do it. And then all of a sudden, the notes that are in the sticks, the tone that's in the wood as it hits the pad, the stick starts to resonate. And I'm going, whoa, this is really good. I'd never experienced that before. And listening on that level, and my hands, I got so relaxed and could play all this really intricate things, but from a very relaxed place, was from his teaching. When he would say, you know, you're gripping too much here. You loosen your left hand on that stroke. You know, all this. It was brilliant.
How much of that are you able to infuse with your own personality into your own? Have students called you Yoda?
Oh, I don't know, man. You know,
you don't give them a sheet at the end of the semester saying, "Can you please fill out and see if you have this?"
Well, the thing about somebody that's Yoda, they don't call themselves Yoda.
No, I dig. I'm saying yours, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, first of all, who's your teacher today?
Well, interestingly enough, I have a couple guys who, to me, teach me really good life lessons. And I'm not going to give you their names, but they're really, really super people. And one guy is not a professional drummer. He plays the drums. He has a real successful business. We worked out together, ran together. We'd had this workout that we used to do before I had my hip surgeries. There was a place in the Bay Area called Seal Point Park. It's right on the bay. And it's just this mound of dirt. And you can see it as you're coming across, going west on the San Mateo Bridge. And they have these stairs there, 100 stairs. And our workout would be, we would run the stairs 10 times and then do exercises in between each trip up the stairs. So it's 100 stairs 10 times. That was the workout. And during those workouts, we would just talk about life. We would talk about things. We were very interested in each other's lives and the families and all that stuff. And it was just a fabulous, we still do those kind of things, work out together, talk all the time. He's a person whose perspective I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. So
there's another guy.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's another guy who I just saw, and he's a drummer. Brilliant guy, very hardcore, old school thinking kind of guy. my age. Actually, he was a little bit younger than me.
Have I interviewed him yet?
No.
Go ahead. Okay, so this guy to me, the other cat sounds like a spiritual brother. This cat, maybe before you go off, it sounds like, well, is he more the practical application of the drums?
Well, he's a drummer. This guy's like a
Mm-hmm.
real. He's a drumming is not his hobby. Like it's his life,
Mm-hmm.
and he just has real old school, interesting ways to look at things, and is a straight shooter. Really, really cool guy. And so I just love these guys. They're just my friends. I appreciate them. I know their families and their kids and all this stuff. And they're just beautiful, beautiful people who have a lot to talk about. To me anyway. I'm the one that's listening. I just love it. So, yes, I always have somebody who's teaching me or mentoring me, always.
One of the things about my show that happened organically, like you said, it all just sort of comes together in a blender, but I realized over time it was, and maybe it was something that I was not doing enough of in the rest of my life, was respecting my elders. And even though I'm not a musician by any means, I mean, I am now seeking my peers and getting their stories, but I spent, as you know, a good 5 years just going after my elders. And I just wanted you to talk about the importance of respect to your elders. I look at a lot of some of the stuff just rippling through our country now, and I look at it in many ways as a lack of respect towards your elders. And I'm not trying to sound hokey I have kids of my own, and, the hierarchical structure of the family has changed in a lot of ways. The nuclear family has changed in a lot of ways, but talk to younger cats about the importance of respecting elders, not so much having a mentor. I think a lot of people have mentors, but why it's so important to respect your elders.
I don't know that a lot of people have mentors.
And maybe that's true too.
Yeah. I work with people all the time. And having a mentor is part of the passing on of a tradition, of passing the baton, especially passing on tradition. That's what mentoring is. You're passing on something. The Indian music tradition is loaded with, that's all based on that, growing up under the guidance of someone. And then that person who guided you has your respect and admiration, and, you defer to them for the rest of your life. I remember when I was playing with Mickey Hart, Zakir Hussain, who was in the band, one day he came to the gig and he handed all of us incense. And he said, "Today is the day in India that we pay tribute to our teachers. Whoever it is that taught you, today's the day that you pay tribute to them." Now, in modern society, are we taught to have a special day to think about and, the lessons we've learned from our teachers? I don't think so.
No.
And to me, that was such an awesome, awesome thing that he would want to include me in that. And I never forgot it. I thought it was just, wow, this is really important. This is real. This is what you do. This is how you learn. This is how you pass on what you're doing. Mike Clark, my brother Mike Clark, is really big on this stuff, roots stuff. You know, he's really, really big on tradition and history. I remember Tower of Power was playing at B.B. King's in New York City, and Mike brought Buster Williams to see us. And I about crapped myself. I thought I was going to collapse. And here I'm shaking Buster Williams' hand. I actually have a photo of him and me someplace. And Mike was so proud, man. He was so, you know, just happy that he could bring the guy, that he would come, and, you know, wanted them to hear us. And it was just it was so cool. I remember we played with Herbie Hancock at Winterland in San Francisco, and it was the Crossings Band, and Buster Williams was in that. And I remember that gig, man. We're looking at all these guys, Julian Priester and all these cats, Benny Maupin,
Eddie Henderson.
We're looking at these cats, and we're awestruck. I remember watching Billy Hart play, and we were just, I know I couldn't believe it, man, that I was in the same place with these guys, and they were all so cool. They were just really friendly, you know, but they had such a vibe, man, you know. And I think it was the tradition that they came up in, you know, the American music, you know, jazz music, you know, as a very rich tradition, and it's all about passing on stuff, you know. There's a line of people that each of us comes from, and it enriches your musical experience to really know what that line is that you came from. So that's where I'm at about.
Oh, I know. I mean, this is why. This is why I love cooking the groove with you, man. Because I guess the follow up on that question is, so that's a lot to bite off, but insofar as the continuum of music and in the lineage of music, is your advice to people when you do what you can do to affect change in your world, in the David Garibaldi world, meaning you are a mentor to your students. You try to do the best you can to pass along the roots and the lineage of the music and the discipline and all that stuff. Is that all you can do, or is there more that you want to do or believe you should do?
What else is there?
Starting the David Garibaldi Quintet.
No. You know, the thing that's most important to me is to try to live according to my values, to be my best that I can be, you know, push myself to do that, to, you know, have a standard that I try to operate by, you know. And I think that's what I can share with people. You know, I can teach people how to do that, you know, how to live according to their values, you know, to operate play drums according to their values. And if you don't have a value system yet, how to get it, you know, think about it. And that's what I want to do. I mean, maybe a Dave Garibaldi quintet, maybe that's in the cards someday. But, you know, I don't even care about that, really, honestly. I'm doing what I like to do. Seriously, I mean, I already have a footprint in this thing. And I like where it is. I mean, I really do. I mean, I enjoy my interactions with people. I enjoy my bandmates. I like my music. I like having my ass kicked on the road. I like jet lag. I must. I've been doing it for, so long. I like when I see my brothers out on the road and we share a few moments together, like when I see Mike, Mike Clark. That dude he's just golden to me, man. I just remember coming up, and meeting him and kind of our paths sort of, I don't know, man, we just have a shared experience that no one else has. I mean, we came from such a cool era and, hooked up with really cool bands and kind of had a vibe that we were following in our playing and, understand each other really well, from that standpoint, wanting to have understanding tradition, respect for our elders, that kind of stuff. I mean, when Mike brought Buster Williams to the gig, man, he was like, I still have that scene in my mind. We're backstage there at BB King's, and it was like he had Yoda with him. And it was so deep, man. It was just really, really cool. And he just a big smile on his face, and this is Buster Williams. And holy shit, so great, man.
No, I mean, it's a revelation every day because I get to interview Delbert McClinton about how he met Mike Clark in a bar in Texas, and next thing you know, they're on the road, and that it's about caring, it's about heart and love. I mean, that's the point, is that you guys, the photos you put up on Facebook indicate a band of love, and I'd look at my generation and younger generations where it seems like the ego or one person has, the music was always, your philosophy, your generation, the music was always above everybody else. And somewhere along the line, that kind of got out of whack. I guess looking at it just as an observer, do you worry that there isn't enough respect for elders and people, not enough mentors out there, insofar as, just in the general scene, that when you see people bashing all over the place and sort of, well, just in general, I mean, just people saying very blanket statements like, well, we live in a completely different time and it's a whole new world. And those are very, very colloquial phrases when in fact it's all right there if you are willing to open your heart and seek from people. That's all. I mean, you answered your question before about your view of mentoring, but do you worry that is not just a lost art, but it's hurting our society?
I don't think about it like that. I mean, I'm not here to change the world, man. I mean, my worries, I guess, in quotes, are whether I'm going to play really well, tomorrow night on the bandstand. Am I going to be there for my brothers? I mean, when somebody in the band, wants to talk about something or something happens, or, like my family, my wife, my kids, is my son going to have confidence at his basketball game? I mean, this is stuff that I think about. I mean, I, want my family to be peaceful, and safe and happy and all that. And so if I worry about stuff, it's about those kind of things. That's just, I think everybody has those concerns,
No, I know. But
I don't think about it like that, man. Really, I don't. I was looking at, tradition here. You're talking about tradition. I saw a picture yesterday of from a NAMM show. It was Jim Keltner, Earl Palmer, Zig, and me. And I'm going, man, I do not belong with that crowd. But I'm in the picture. It looks good.
right, and maybe there's just maybe you do. I think you do belong in that crowd.
Well, it's just, I say it, facetiously, but I think about all those guys and my interactions with all those guys are just such nice people, great, unique players. And that is what you want to be. You want to be like those guys, have a footprint in this like those people do.
So Rocco, I'm looking here at Frenchie's. He said we used to have the Go-Go Girls call out tunes at Frenchie's in Hayward. Sly played there. Cold Blood used to be around. The band Extension 5 started in Fremont before we relocated to Oakland. We felt if we could just get to Frenchie's, then we would have made it. You walk into this big old club with a stage in the back. We eventually got there. It was the place to play. Did Extension 5 played there, but did the actual, when did you play there?
With Tower.
So it was already converted to, the name had changed to Tower at that point, and you guys were playing at Frenchie's.
I joined the band when it was Tower of Power. I was in the military when those guys were, learning how to play. We're 5 years or so apart. And so when I was in the military, I was 19 years old. They were like 14 and 15. So they were learning how to play, and they learned fast. So Rocco and Emilio have been playing together since they were 14 years old. Now, Frenchie's, which was this really fancy supper club, kind of became more like a rock and roll kind of place where everybody started playing. We used to play in there. We would rock that place. It was really fun. There was one night that we did it. We had a jam there. All these people came. Stevie Wonder was in there. Redbone, Larry Graham, Cold Blood. All these people, and they're all lined up wanting to play and jam. And it was really a really pretty amazing night.
And by the way, before we wrap up, I wanted to, the military I just picked up, these Air Force records that are so funky and bluesy from the 70s. Again, you're well into your career at this point. But you must have been playing blues, funky blues in the Army, in the military band. It was not just military marches. Can you break down some bluesy, funky stuff that you were grooving on in the military?
Yeah, but the blues is that's like a foundational way to play. The blues is in jazz music. The blues it's part of American music. So
right.
It's in everything. Blues changes are in everything. And, of course, I played that stuff. Everybody did, and then there's blues bands and, there's, choruses, you listen to, some of those great organ records, Jimmy Smith, Jimmy McGriff, all those cats, Jack McDuff, blues-based music. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just I picked up an album today. I'm just saying that it's not. I'm not sure if. I'm just saying this military band picked up in '77. There's a cat. They did a version of Butterfly. Funk was not necessarily in the lexicon as a musical term when you were in the Army, but were you guys were playing funky blues?
Well, when you say funky blues, what do you mean? There was no. Let's talk about this for just a second.
Go ahead.
Military music was at the time that I was in was not modern by any stretch of the imagination. It was marching bands. We had a symphonic band, which was really amazingly good.
Wow.
We had small combos. We had a jazz group, a big band, kind of stuff. And so the young guys, we were bringing in music to play. And the older guys didn't dig it because they were rooted in, military music tradition, which was Glenn Miller and, marches, John Philip Sousa and all this other stuff, right? And so during that time when I was in, all these young people were coming in, right? So, because it was Vietnam. And so they were changing the way that military music was being played because it was young people coming in. They have all these influences, all these different things going on, right? So it was a big, big change for military music. And I liked the military, and I considered staying in, but the music thing was just, it sucked. It was not going anywhere. And then they changed it so that it was more contemporary. And so when you're hearing recordings like you found and kind of what it is today, it is, changed considerably. Now, I was in a field band. The bands that you want to be in if you're in the were like the headquarters bands. There was the NORAD band, which was in Colorado Springs, and they were a combination of different services, plus I think Canada.
That's right. That's right.
Canadian bands were in it. Bobby Shue, he was in that. And then there was, I think, a band in Nebraska at the SAC headquarters. They had a big, pretty serious band there. But the band that you wanted to be in was the bands in D.C. All the D.C. bands, the Air Force band, the Marine band, the Army band, the Coast Guard band, the Navy band, all the D.C. bands are the cream of the crop. And so if I would have stayed in, I would have tried to get in that. That was serious. The Airmen of Note, the Commodores.
The Airmen of Note. That's it. The Airmen of Note.
Yeah, that's the Air Force big band in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I before I wanted this guy, I literally found the record today, and I was smiling because I said, well, I'm going to talk to Garibaldi because this guy's name is Skip Schaefer. Schaefer is a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if does that name ring a bell at all or no?
It does. I couldn't tell you much about it, but yeah, I know the name.
Right. I mean, because it's like, it says, does anyone know about the whereabouts of Skip Schaefer? He was the drummer on the Airmen of Note, and Billy Drummond chimes in. I still have some Dr. Steve Gadd and Tony Williams transcriptions that this guy Skip Schaefer sent me 40 years ago. No idea where he is. I'm just saying it was like, wow, man, that was, it's interesting to know that when you guys came in, the new stuff that you were bringing in to add to the language, those guys weren't getting off on. And then it was almost like you got pulled back into the vibrancy of just the musical of our culture, and then it kind of broke through and it became more flexible.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to know where he was, you could probably contact the Air Force band in D.C. They have a website, and it's possible that they could give you a line on where he was,
One final question for you, Mr. Garibaldi, and it's so great to connect with you again, brother. Could you just talk about the most inspirational thing that you've had go on in your life in 2016?
The most inspirational thing. Well, there's a bunch of things, honestly, and I say this respectfully, and but I find a lot of inspiration in my life all the time. I mean, I think I look for it. I look for things to be inspired by. I mean, my son, he's 11 years old, and he discovered that he wanted to play basketball. And discovered in playing it that if he wanted to play, he was going to have to hustle. So we have conversations about that. And his first game this season, he was in the starting 5. He's 11. And I'm going, man, this is so great. And just the fact that I had 2 major surgeries last year. I feel fantastic. I just turned 70. I mean, what's not to be blown away by? I mean, it's I get to do this. I'm still doing this. I'm not tired, believe it or not. We have this most stupid schedule. Last week I was in China. I was home for a day.
Right.
I, washed some clothes, had dinner with my wife, and boy, had a great dinner. Next day I got on the plane, came out here and did this. I mean, I don't know, man. I can't pinpoint one thing. It's just a big...
Well, no, let's go back to your son, though, the idea of hustling. What did you tell him about hustling? Because obviously he's loving the Golden State Warriors. You guys are out in that neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
I told him that, I told him if you want to play, because he says the coaches already have told you that everybody's going to get to play, but the best ones will play more. So if you want to be one of those, then you have to work on your game. You have to improve your shooting. You have to play really, really good in-your-face defense, and you have to run the floor the entire practice and the entire game. And he said, but they don't pass me the ball. I said, well, if your game improves, they're going to trust you with the ball, and you're going to get it. So now he's getting people are passing him the ball. He's involved. He's just, was in the starting 5. Stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, I dig. I think it's really cool because it's you got to pay your dues in order to gain trust on the bandstand, trust on the basketball court, and if you have an impact on him, then that is inspirational. And I'll be honest with you, I just say it because you can look at things, and if you don't seek in today's world, you can get very demoralized. It doesn't happen to me because I'm talking to cats like you every day. I'm being inspired every day. But it's nice to know when you just talk to people that are still doing what they're doing, what they love to do, and what still, gets them inspired. And so, and with that, when are you actually going to be back in the Bay Area? I mean, when is this tour?
We go home Monday. We have 4 more shows, and then home for a few days, which I'm looking forward to.
Well, we'll reconvene in the near future, Dave. It was David. It was just it's always an honor to connect with you, man. And
well, thanks for having me, man. This is a good conversation. Always a lot of stuff to talk about.
Always.
Always a lot of good things going on in life that are inspiring.
Well, I appreciate you, and I think the Jake Feinberg show is one of them. So, I mean, listen. The bottom line is, thank you for your support along the way, man. You've been, you've told me the truth along the way, and that's the most important thing. No, I mean, how do you grow? How do you grow? So, anyway, much love, man, and keep swinging, and have a great rest of the tour. We'll be in touch.
All right, brother.
Later
Enjoy
on, dude.
Your day, and I'll talk to you real soon.
Say hi to all the guys. Say hi to all the guys for me. All right.
I'll do it.
Thank you, brother.
All right, bro.
Later,
Bye.
man. Peace. Just finished up there is our 3rd interview with legendary drummer of Tower of Power, David Garibaldi. We will be back on Saturday with Oteil Burbridge and Steve Gadd. In the meantime, we are going to rejoin the Jim Parisi Show in progress.
Law, they didn't have anything to do with.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And I also have to say congratulations on the big hit show here, and I love your confirmation haircut. You know, it's really working for you.
That's me, but I appreciate it.
Listen, I don't, like you, I believe that I have nothing against protest per se unless you inconvenience innocent people grievously or break other people's stuff. I was a renowned or notorious protester, however you want to characterize it, 1968,